So welcome back to the first in-person and hybrid event in 3 years. The last time we saw each other was back in January of 2020 for the reInvent recap for 2019. It's good to see actual physical people in a room. As a Greek person, it feels good to feed people. It just makes me happy. It's in my genes. This is going to be an amazing talk. Dennis and I have worked together. He's been on vBrownBag a number of times. Just a brilliant presenter and a fun person to hang out with. But before we get started, what I wanted to do was get a couple of items out of the way. The website still isn't up. So don't go to awspug.org. We are working to fix that. But you can follow us on the Slack channel. If you join the Slack channel, I got to fix that.
Yeah, we'll put these together. ChatGPT.
If you go to awspug.slack.com, then you can join the Slack channel, or if you follow at awspug on Twitter, that's where we have the events and the feeds and everything that's happening. Thank you very much to our sponsors, Liberty Mutual for giving us the room and the ZA this evening, Worldwide for providing us with future places that we're going to be booking, and of course AWS for the credits and the goodwill. So I'm not going to steal Dennis's thunder. We all know that we're here to talk about all the fun things: AI, ChatGPT, serverless, Lambda, all the things. So why don't I stop talking and let you get going? And you're going to flip that over. Yeah, you don't know about me.
This clips somehow?
This clips. So you can pop this right here.
All right.
Or are you going to put the t-shirt
I'll
on?
do that first. Okay. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Chris. I get to hang out with Chris at his house today. It was great. But first I have to do a wardrobe change. I bought this shirt just for today. It's Lambda, Lambda, Lambda shirt. So what movie?
Everybody, come on.
There, I heard it. Revenge of the Nerds.
Try Lambs.
I heard it. So I'm going to put this on for the first time. Okay. All right, now I'm ready. Let's see. Think that'll work, Chris?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. All right. So I'll do some standing. I might do some sitting. Let me just get my deck up here. All right. So first of all, get this chair out of the way. Thanks for coming. It's after work and you're still here, so I really appreciate that. I'm actually honored to be your guest here, both at Liberty as well as AWS Pug. This is my first AWS Pug that I've presented at. And it was really when I heard Chris was without a speaker for April. Got it. When I heard Chris was without a speaker for April, I always like to jump in. And I've always got some sort of mad science project in my back pocket. And I just happened to be working on something. Someone that I saw online had written a clock that told poetry and told the time by poetry. And I thought that was cool. I want to do that, but tell limericks, because maybe that would be even more fun. And so I did all that, and and I'm like, okay, if this is AWS Pug, let's actually do it in Lambda, because I'm a masochist. So I'm like, that we can do it in Lambda as well and get the whole AWS thing in. So I actually had it running on this today at my home, at Chris's home, but it won't run here for some networking reasons. But this is really cool. This is something I built a couple years ago. On GitHub you can find a Ponagachi. It's basically like a Tamagotchi that cracks Wi-Fi passwords. And it's so you may have seen that, but you can find.
It doesn't work in here.
Well, yeah. So, but I'm not running that software. I changed. I'm not running that software on this. So, what it basically is it's a small e-ink display, and then behind that is a Raspberry Pi Zero W wireless, and behind that's a little battery. And so it's like self-contained, right? It just sort of runs. And at my house and Chris's house, every minute it would change. And I was going to pass this around. You could see it change and see the limerick every minute. But of course, it's not working, because that's life. But we're going to see it all working anyway. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about ChatGPT. We're going to talk about machine learning. We're going to talk about Lambda. We're going to talk about a lot of things. that are not my specialty, but I learned enough to hopefully teach a little bit and be a little bit entertaining tonight. At the bottom of this screen, I actually created a tiny URL for these limericks. If you can run this later, you'll get the deck later, but tinyurl.com/lambda limerick. You can go bash that and spend all my OpenAI money by just hitting that and hitting that and hitting that. I got my credit card connected to that, so feel free. And every time you hit it, it'll give you another different limerick based on the current time. And that's what we're gonna talk about tonight. So this is just one example, not live, because I'm not smart enough to figure out how to do that in a slide. But we are gonna do some live. And if you have your VT220, you can type in everything that you see down there. Okay, so let's get started. Little agenda, what we're gonna do, I'm gonna just introduce myself real quickly. We're gonna talk about machine learning. Anybody here do machine learning sort of as a profession, like every day? Anybody like a data scientist? Okay, good, because neither am I. But I know enough to kind of like, and I've been studying up, and I'll teach you a little bit about machine learning, because that's what's behind all this, right? And then we'll get into how I built the software pipeline that drives this everywhere but in your office to pump out limericks based on the current time. So I'll show you all that, all the pain and suffering and gray hairs by getting Lambda to work, which I've done before, but every time it's just horrible. First time I did it, I wanted to learn serverless years ago. It was when Alexa first came out, and I'm like, oh, I really want to learn serverless because that seems like the way to do stuff, right? I mean, it's like, it's light, it's practically free, right? I need to learn how to do serverless. So I wrote, of course, a dad jokes skill for Alexa, and that was really fun, and it worked, and it was great. I got input from my friends' little kids, like jokes they loved to throw in there, for dad jokes, and so that's when I first learned it. I had to do stuff in Lambda, and I probably haven't done it in years because it was so painful. So we'll talk about that's going to be most of the time we spend together is this whole software pipeline that goes from everything to everything and shows up somewhere else with a limerick. And then we can do some live modifications. We can change it from clean limericks to some other type of limericks. We can change it to Dr. Seuss, who's my favorite author. Dr. Seuss rhymes, whatever we want, live in Lambda, and we can change it. I actually brought my own personal custom stickers with me, which are so awesome. If you ask a question or answer a question, you can take one of these awesome stickers. You can't see it from back there, but this is my favorite. I think I have like 6 of these left. This is the Swedish chef saying "Vert de Ferk." So that's like my favorite. So make sure you ask your questions early. There's only 6 of these left. I have some of this handsome gentleman here, which happens to be me. And this is my other favorite. It's a pentagram sticker that says Chmod 666. So those are some of my favorites. You can see some of them here on my laptop. Okay, so questions as we go through. I threw in some really geeky appendixes, which you can have later. Oh, by the way, because I guess I'm a masochist, I'm like, hey, I want everybody to access this deck. I'm not going to do it in PowerPoint. I'm going to do it in LibreOffice, which is open source. Anybody can install it. You can get the deck. That was painful too. It mostly works, but it has its own little quirks. So it's in OpenOffice. I'm sure Chris will post that when he posts everything later. You'll have the deck, and you can open it up. You can click on the links and go to these places. Hopefully not get into my Amazon account. Probably not. I have 2-factor authentication on it. Okay, let's get started. Is the audio coming across strong enough on your laptop? Okay, all right, good. Okay, so me. I'm Dennis Faucher. I've got a great family, great wife Christine, 3 adult children. They're in Toronto, and one's in Toronto, 2 of them are in Scotland. I raise chickens and robots. These are some ways you can contact me. Feel free to contact me about anything. I'm not on BirdChan anymore. I'm on Mastodon. So that's my Mastodon address, second from the bottom. You can access me any of these things. So for work, I'm not a programmer by trade. I was, when I came out of college, I was a COBOL programmer and a C programmer. And then I learned I could make even as much money just talking to people for a living. I was like, get me out of this programming thing. So I wasn't the greatest COBOL programmer, but I knew how to do it. So I'm not a programmer. I'm not a data scientist. I'm not an Amazon person every day. I'm a pre-sale guy, right? So those are the folks who are supposed to know everything about IT, no matter how broad and wide, to at least tell you, does it work? Should you use it, right? And as I was walking the dog this morning, I had a good analogy. This is kind of like me. I'm like the Home Depot customer service, right? Where you come in and you say like, where's the hammer, right? And I can tell you like, where's the hammer and whether you should use a hammer or not, but I'm not going to build your deck. Or I'm not going to do your plumbing. You know, there's somebody else who does that, but I can at least tell you whether you should be using a hammer or a torch to do your plumbing. So I kind of, that's me. I'm Home Depot customer service, I think. That's what I do for a living. I've actually done it for a long time. I love it because it's like different every day. Like, look at this. Like, IT's like that, right? Like, you could do the same job in IT for like decades and it's different every day, right? Like, because something new comes up, right? Like, now we're dealing with ChatGPT, which is crazy, and you know, machine learning and cloud. It just changes all the time. So anyway, I love it. I love it. I've been doing it a long time. I was a manager, SC manager for 6 years, and then I went back to just doing this, working with customers every day. I love it. Okay. All right, ready? Put your machine learning hat on. We're going to talk about machine learning. So has anyone here built a machine learning model themselves? Matt?
Combined a couple of them.
Okay, cool. So Chris and I actually did one for B. Brown Bag. We built a model that could tell the difference between Chris Williams and Betty White. And that was fun.
It was accurate too.
Yeah, it was accurate. And so we're going to talk a little about machine learning, how it works, because it's good to know this, like how it works, and why you might get weird answers. You're like, wait, why did I get that? Like, isn't this thing smart? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So let's talk about first let's go in the time machine. Where did ChatGPT come from? So it actually came from Google. They won't tell you that. Google will if you ask them. So Google was doing some research on how can I get better Google Translate, right? We've probably all used Google Translate at one point, right? We're moving to a much smaller house, so we're just like, everything must go. We're just like dumping everything on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. And there's this really nice guy in Cambridge who wanted to buy my toy train set from when I was a kid, but didn't speak English. So I was like using my Google Translate, we're going back and forth, and we finally made it happen. He actually worked at Google. I met him in Cambridge, and he bought my toy train set, and that was fun. But what Google was trying to figure out is, how can we make this translation more accurate? And so they said, well, let's look at all the words in these different languages. And in machine learning, what you do is everything has to come down to a number. So you assign a number to every word. And because neural networks, which is what machine learning is based on, is kind of like statistics. There's all these different layers where you apply math to them, and then you come out with the right answer at the end. So what Google did is like, all right, if we assign math to these words as to which one probably should come next, we'll probably have even better translations. So they actually designed this whole idea of guessing what the next word is. And that's all ChatGPT is. It's like, all right, if I had these words, what should be the next word? What should be the next word? What should be the next word? So it's really just a string of words that kind of go together well, like the Do Re Mi song. So it's a string of words that kind of go together well. They may not make sense, but they're grammatically correct, and they go together well. So Google did that for Google Translate, and they published a paper that said, hey, we did this. Here's our research. And the folks at OpenAI were like, hey, I think we could make something even cooler. We can, you know, write people's term papers for them or whatever, right? And they made this thing that can come up with like as long a book if you want, right? If you want to pay enough credits to OpenAI, you can write a book with it or whatever. So that's where it started. And so basically, it just takes words that look like they should come next and strings them together. And it started with the Google research on Google Translate. And so what it does is it's like, all right, so here's a bunch of words that should come next. Which one has the highest probability? I'll stick that one in next. And there's also something called a temperature that we'll see a little bit. And that's sort of the entropy feature of ChatGPT, and I'm sure it's in Bard and all these other things, where the whole idea was if you want this to kind of feel right, if you ask the same question twice, you should get a different answer. A little, you know, it'll still make sense, but a little different. You've probably tried that yourself, right? I ask the same question, I get a different answer each time. That's because there's sort of some entropy built into it, which is called a temperature. And there's a number from like, you know, 0.1 to 0.9, and it depends on how much entropy you're going to get, how different the answers are going to be. So that's part of it. And you'll see that in the code. All right. And then it kind of trails off, of course, right? Where the high probability is if the phrase was the best thing about AI is the ability to, like you got some high probabilities, learn could be the next word, but its ability to talk, catch, combine is kind of trails off, right? So it knows all these words, they all get sort of ranked, and it tries to pick the top ones with some sort of entropy. All right. So this is what a neural network looks like. And so when I said, has anybody built a machine learning model, how it works is like when we built the Chris-Betty model, what it did was we fed it a bunch of training data, a whole bunch of pictures of Chris and a whole bunch of pictures of Betty. And it analyzed them, and it was like, all right, I found some eyes, I found a nose, and it kind of turned all those groups of pixels into numbers. And the computer tries to figure out a math equation where it can look at these pixels and apply all different statistical math equations to it so that at the end of the day, it comes out with the right answer. Is it Chris or is it Betty? And that's what it does when it's building that model. It's just like basically killing itself until it gets it right? It just goes, boom, boom, boom. I got it wrong, I got it wrong, got it wrong, got it wrong. And what it does is when it finally gets a model that it thinks works, you actually hide some data. That's called the test data. There's the train data where it builds the model, and then there's test data that it hasn't seen. So it uses the train data to go, okay, I figured it out. I know what a Chris looks like, I know what a Betty looks like. All right, now let's try it on this data I've never seen, these pictures of Chris I've never seen, these pictures of Betty I've never seen. Did it work? Crap, it didn't. Okay, let's go back and let's try it again until my train data actually works with the test data that I haven't seen. Well, it's the same thing with ChatGPT, but much larger, right? It's like the whole human language, right? And every word gets assigned a numeric number, and then it kind of figures out what could come next. But there's a human aspect to it, which gives it a little more accuracy. And this is called sort of human reinforcement. So the way ChatGPT works, and probably Google Bard as well, is you do that stuff we talked about where is it Chris, is it Betty, right? And you've got this model. But in the first phase, a human looks at the output. So if I have this sentence like, what's the best flavor of ice cream or whatever, right? And it'll say like vanilla, chocolate, asparagus, right? It may come up with these answers. A human actually goes, all right, asparagus is negative 99, right? And chocolate and vanilla are like plus, 99 or plus 50. And so humans actually were involved in building these models by tagging the output and going, okay, that was a horrible guess. That was an awesome guess. And then what's wild is that this human tagging becomes its own model. So all these humans are tagging this good, bad, and it becomes its own model. And now the AI can keep building its model and checking on this human model, did I get it right? So you basically, you've created a robot to replace the humans who are tagging because the humans did enough tagging that it could build its own robot to do tagging. So that kind of makes your head hurt, sorry about that. But that's how it got so accurate, because we needed the humans in there to give it some feedback, some reinforcement learning, what's what it's called, reinforcement learning. But you can't have, in order to scale this thing, you can't have humans tagging everything. So basically the human tagging turns into another model that gives rewards or negative rewards to the output. And that's how it comes up with the final model. And run ChatGPT 3.5. There's a 4 coming out, which is supposed to be which is going to be able to take images. Like you can actually point your camera at the fridge and say, what should I make for dinner, right? And that's like ChatGPT 4, and be like, oh, I see some milk, some asparagus, some eggs. Okay, I can do this. So it's going to be doing images and all sorts of stuff like that. Okay, any questions? Machine learning's hard. I'm not a data scientist. My favorite definition of machine learning I read in Wired magazine, which is the only paper thing I've always gotten. I've subscribed to Wired magazine since it came out, in 1993. I've been getting it for 30 years. And there was an article in there that said, machine learning is like training a dog, right? You trained your dog to fetch. You have no idea how the dog figured it out. You can't open up its head. You just know that it worked. And that's kind of machine learning. You can't actually go look at the model and figure out what it's doing. Most of the time, it's just it worked. And if it didn't work, just keep training until it works. And so it's kind of scary. You have no idea what it's doing, but at least it's doing it. So it's kind of like training a dog to do something. It figures it out, and there you go. Okay, all right. So, and then I was going through this. There was a concept on this last one about PPO. I have no idea what that means. So I asked ChatGPT, explain proximal policy optimization in a non-technical way, which was a big piece of that reinforcement. And this is, it's basically as it's training itself, it tries to like kick it off balance, and then it tries to come back and fix itself. So that was just part of it, and it gave me a good answer. So it is helpful, even though sometimes you get answers that are total BS, as you'll see later. It actually is pretty helpful for understanding some things. And has anybody seen this XKCD strip before on machine learning? It's great. It is so true, because it's like I have all these statistics in here, and I ask it a question, and it's like, well, what if I don't like the answer? Well, just stir it around some more until you get the answer you like. And that is so much machine learning. Like, it's just like, it's a bunch of math, and if you didn't like the math, maybe stir the math some more, because these neural networks are massive. They could be like hundreds of layers of math, right? And you could be like, well, that one didn't work. Let's poke this one. Maybe we'll take a layer out. And that's really how it works sometimes. It's like, well, maybe it shouldn't be 1,000 layers. What if we did 500 layers? Why? I don't know, because it's different. And sometimes data science is like that. You just like, well, let's try this. And I was reading a great article. The guy who invented Wolfram Alpha, Stephen Wolfram. I read an article he wrote on ChatGPT the other day. It was brilliant. Like, this guy's like 1,000 times smarter than me, but it was so easy to understand. It was like everything I've ever read about machine learning in an understandable way. And he was kind of like, and one of the parts of it is like, he was like, why did they use this type of model to start ChatGPT with? And he was like, they don't know. That's just one that worked. And unfortunately, a lot of machine learning is still like that. It's like, well, this one works. I don't know why, but this one works. So let's keep using that one. Okay. So I'm sorry, things are cutting off up there, but basically, ChatGPT is a confident BS engine. It really is. It's not intelligent. It strings words together that are grammatically correct, right? It doesn't know what it's saying. It's like, this word probably follows this one. So, and you can probably read this yourself. Oh, I'm using what's called Good Dog font. I thought I'd do that because it's AWS Pug, so I found this font called Good Dog. So that's why this font's like that. But, why is Chris Williams from HashiCorp regarded as the smartest person in the room? This is an actual answer. Chris Williams from HashiCorp is regarded as the smartest person in the room because of his extensive knowledge, okay, good, and experience, good, in the field of software engineering. He is founder and CTO of HashiCorp. So I get a lot of these when I ask about people, like, how did Dennis Faucher die in 2023? Oh, well, let me tell you. So it's a grammatically correct sentence, but it's not factual. So, and you see a lot of articles about that. Don't assume that ChatGPT is intelligent. It's not intelligent. It knows how to string words together grammatically. and a lot of times it's great. Like, I'll ask it for coding samples, and those are awesome, right? Like, I would ask it, like, how could I code this in Lambda, right? And it would come up with something, and most of the times it would work, right? I asked the other day, I sent this one to Chris, write me a Python Trojan horse. Bam. Like, it was like 20 lines. I'm like, yep, that would work. It basically opened up a port, listened to the port. I was like, yep, that would work. So it seems like it's better for more like dry stuff like programming or history or something like that. But some of this stuff is obviously, your mileage may vary. It's kind of like shaking a magic 8-ball sometimes. All right, I just want to make that. All right, so that's machine learning. That's GPT. That's kind of how it was built. Any questions before we go on? Yes?
Yeah, is ChatGPT connected to the internet so it can go out and glean factoids to make its response a little more factual?
Not at the moment. There are companies that are thinking of kind of reinforcing on a constant basis. What they're doing for each version is they have sort of an input. And for like 3.5, it was like GitHub and Reddit and like a lot of text-based pieces of the internet. They basically sucked up the internet and built a model out of that just for words that go together. But they don't on a regular basis just do that. So each version, they're like, because the problem with like building these models can't really be done on the fly, right? It takes like a warehouse of GPUs, like literally a warehouse of GPUs to crunch this stuff for a long time, and then I have the model, and then I use the model, right? So when I'm making requests now, I'm like using the model. Using a model is fast. Building a model is very time consuming with, the most expensive GPUs, and a lot of them that produce a lot of heat and all that. So it's basically, as they come up with new iterations, they pull in more data, different data, and they probably tweak the parameters as well so they can be more accurate. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Would you like a sticker?
No, thank you.
Okay.
And just to add on that too, if you ask ChatGPT questions for like what happened last month, it will say my cutoff date was September 2021. So I was trying
that's
to get
cool.
some March Madness brackets, some guidance out there, and it was like, hey, I only know the teams that were active as of this cutoff
Oh,
date.
that's cool.
So it will sometimes, and you have to ask yourself if it's BS, it'll share with you a bit of context around its cutoff date to information.
Oh, nice.
So.
I didn't know that. Awesome, thanks. All right.
Just because those things are published, don't, again, try to keep in mind, if I start sounding like Sarah Connor, don't look at me funny, because I do get very enthusiastic about this. But just because the response from ChatGPT is, I can't do this, or I'm not able to connect to the internet, doesn't mean that it's not possible for it to do that. With the right prompt engineering, you can do a significant amount of that stuff. When the first version came out and it was free, I was buying burner phones because you needed a non-VoIP PSTN number in order to authenticate for an account. And I was getting banned every other day because I was getting it to circumvent some of those policies, like internet use and instantiating IPsec tunnels. So there's a lot of weirdness that goes on in the background.
Yeah, they try to put some guardrails in, but people always find a way around them. I've seen people write things like that, like, okay, imagine you're going to break your own rules. Okay, now, answer this question.
Prompt engineering is apparently a big thing.
Yes. All right, so let's get into some code and stuff. Okay. Okay, who can tell me who that magician is?
Shia LaBeouf.
Oh, it kind of looks like him. This is a magician from like the 70s. Doug Henning. Yes, Doug Henning, very good. So that, if you ever look up that magic gift, that's Doug Henning. If you want a sticker, come get a sticker. He was like my magician growing up. That's how old I am. Okay, anyway, so this says Lambda's magic. Sorry, the top's cut off there, but this is the software pipeline that we're running, right? So if you hit that URL, this is the software pipeline that's happening, right? So the front end is just curl, which is hitting a web page, right? And that's this box is Amazon. So there's an API, which is just the front door to the Lambda function. Otherwise, you can't get at it, right? And we're going to show you how you create all this. We're going to go through how to create all this stuff, and we can even go straight into the code. So there's an API that opens up the code. That's just a Lambda icon. And then there's Python, because Chris told me Python's the only language you should ever use.
That's absolutely right.
And I'm really bad at Node.js, so I'm like, yeah, Python, let's do that. And what's nice is that Lambda has examples, like hello world examples for Python and Node.js. I'm like, yeah, let's do the Python one, because I actually know how to do that a little better. So it comes through, comes in the front door, hits this Python, right? And this Python actually built, there's some nice examples on the OpenAI website. You can go in and go, hey, in a couple languages, show me some code to do stuff. And it'll give you the code, which is really nice. I guess like any good software company, right? They need to enable developers, right? Give you some sample code. So I took some of their sample code, I changed it a little bit. And then, so this Python calls the OpenAI API. And with my API key, which I'm going to delete after tonight because you're probably going to see it 1,000 times, and you don't need to be hitting my credit card, and hits the OpenAI, and then out comes a Limerick, right? So that's basically high level our software chain. All right, let's get into it. Bye, Doug. But it works on my computer, right? The famous statement. But it works on my computer. So my first step was, all right, can I just run some Python on my computer that works? And this was really the sample right off the OpenAI website, which, it's pretty simple, right? The time stuff I shoved in there because I wanted it to actually tell Limerick based on the actual time, right? And so, OpenAI is just a library, right? You can do pip install OpenAI and you get it. And so then there's this is kind of the setup here. This is your sort of request. of OpenAI, right? That you send in, and so you give it your key, of course, which I blacked out part of it, and then it's like which OpenAI version. This one happens to be 3.5. It's got a weird name. The prompt is text. Here's that temperature I talked about. So you could screw with that and get your entropy up and down, right? Make it hallucinate, as they call, right? Doesn't that what they say? It hallucinates. And then max tokens is really just how long of a response can I get, and that's just how much is it going to cost you. Like I think the default's like 75, and I don't know what that is, if that's words or what. But like when I was asking for like a paragraph, 75 wasn't enough, so I bumped it up to 150. Now for a limerick, it's like 4 lines, right? So that's really all I need to tell. And I know there's probably more, but this is like the basic. Basically, I'm using this ChatGPT version 3. This is my entropy, my temperature, and what's the max I want to spend basically on this transaction, 150 tokens. And then it returns, it just prints, I get this, so out of this thing comes this response, I get a response back. An array, I actually never checked any other arrays. I'll bet if there's more, they're probably just not as accurate. So it's pulling out, this is the sample code, so I just used it. It's just checking the first entry in the array of responses, and I'm getting the text of it, and I'm printing it out. So my main is let's find out what time it is. And my request is please tell me your limerick about the time, hour, minute, AM, PM, right? That's just standard Unix time format. You've probably all done that if you've ever done any programming. Okay, and then, that's my request. It gets pumped into there, comes out, and you put a carriage return at the end. Do we still call them carriage returns? New line? What do we call them? Whatever. Okay, so that worked. And hardest part was me figuring out how to do the time part, which I finally figured out. As I said, I don't program every day, but I do love it, right? It's my background, right? I'm a keyboard person, which is why I'm here, I guess. You're going to notice I'm running on a Linux laptop. Okay, so how do you get your key? You just go to the OpenAI website, right? And so I have links in here for everything. I'll click on this link for API keys, and it should magically open up. I may have to log in, which is probably going to be a problem. Oh, there it is. So there's the OpenAI, right? Platform.openai.com, account, API keys, right? And so you can just say create a new key, and it'll just create a new key, right? And then as I said, tonight I'm going to delete this key that we're using right now. It's pretty simple. You create an account, and you put some sort of way to do billing, and then you create an API that you can use in your code. All right. Here. I'll even go into the usage here. Here's the usage one, which kind of shows you this thing was running once every minute, so my usage was cranking, and then I couldn't connect to the internet from it. But you'll notice I ran it all day yesterday, 24 hours, and it was like $2 to do a request once every 60 seconds. But that's actually, I'm going to be talking about that more later. Okay, maybe I'll sit down here. So create a function. Who here has created a Lambda function? Good. Okay, so you've probably seen this before. And so what I did was I went in, I used the blueprint because I'm not that smart, and I said, give me a Python Lambda function. Just give me the hello world one. We'll start with that, and then I'll try to cram that other code into it until it works. So that's what I did. And so this is really the hello world, right? It's just a Lambda has to have this Lambda handler in it. You pass it something, and it passes something back to you, right? So that's where I started with. And then what I did was I jammed my code in here. I'm sure it didn't get it right the first time, but I took that code from the stuff running on my laptop and kind of shoved it into this thing, right? And so I had to add date time, OpenAI, and then that other stuff that you saw, right? I'm like, okay, awesome. And then I went to run it, and it failed. Now, for those of you who've done Lambda, why did it fail? Not because the code stinks. I know that's probably your first guess. Why did it fail? What's that? Yeah, I had the library missing, right? I didn't have the OpenAI library in there. So, and that's the thing that has given me gray hair for the last week, right? Is getting libraries into Lambda, unless you do this for a living, is hard. So, and I'm going to show you how you do it. But basically, the Python and even the Node.js that's in Lambda does basic stuff, right? Typical stuff. But when you want to do something like OpenAI, it's like, well, we don't have that one. So it's not like you can just like log into Lambda and go pip install OpenAI. Wouldn't that be nice? You can't. You have to like, and I'm going to show you. You have to like create what's called a Lambda layer. You create a, like every library or set of libraries is called a layer. And then you add that layer to your function and then it can access it. So we're going to talk about that. Same thing with Node. It's a little bit easier with Node because you can actually have it all working on your laptop, zip it up, and just shove it up there. But with Python, it's a little different. So let's talk about that. So I found 30 ways for this not to work to add layers. I did find a tutorial that said you should use the Amazon IDE, which is called Cloud9. And Cloud9 is basically, if you've used it, it's just an EC2 instance that shuts down every 30 minutes. And so that's what I did. So I created a Cloud9, which is just an EC2 instance. It's Amazon Linux. You log in, you do stuff. So I created that. And the link for the tutorial is at the bottom there. You can see what this is all based on. So now I have this EC2 thing that I can now create my Lambda layer in. I gave it an external IP address, maybe because it's Voodoo, and that's the only way I've ever been able to access my EC2 instances, but I gave it an external IP address, which I'm now paying for, which I'll get rid of tonight. And then I had that tutorial that's at the bottom there says, okay, and now you have to give your Cloud9 instance the ability to publish a layer to Lambda, right? Because everything is, IAM, right? Which is good, right? Zero trust, all that kind of stuff, right? So this tutorial is like, hey, copy and paste this crap in and create a permission for your Cloud9 instance so it can add a layer. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And I did. And it worked, which is great. Because once it worked, I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this. I'm like, why don't I just do it on my Linux, right? And install the AWS CLI and then upload the layer. Never got it to work. I'm like, it was like, oh, you're not using, first it was like, I have a M1 Mac Mini. It's like, well, you're developing on ARM and Lambda is x86 dummy. I'm like, okay, fine. I created an x86 Linux instance, created my layer, uploaded. It's like, nope, you didn't do it with Amazon Linux. I'm like, oh God. So then I found there's an Amazon Linux ISO. I'm like, okay, let's install that. I installed Amazon Linux in VMware in x86, created the layer, uploaded it. Nope. And then there was another time I put 2 hyphens in my layer name. It's like 1 hyphen. It has like this regex. It has this regex that's like this long. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're trying to tell me, but I think I have too many hyphens. I called it like OpenAI -layer -37. It's like, nope. And then I called it OpenAI -37. It's like, that's a good one. I'm like, oh, I don't ever want to do this again. So, but this tutorial works, right? Follow the tutorials at the bottom, and it actually works. But once it worked, then I'm like, there's got to be why do I have to create this Cloud9 thing? Why can't I just do it in Linux, upload it, create a zip? Nope. Okay, fine. So anyway, this is all I had to do once I got that permissions on my Cloud9, right? First I did install pips, that's why get pip.py is there. And then I just did pip install OpenAI, but -t, which means put it in this little folder over here, right? Don't put it in the default place, put it in this little folder. So I'm going to, OpenAI and all its things are going to be in this folder called Python. Great. Zip it up. Okay, so we zip it up. And then here's the AWS command, which is already in the Cloud9 EC2 thing, of course. And so you do all this stuff, and it uploads the layer, and it shows up. And so now there's like layers. And now I can like add a layer because it goes into the magic layer repository of all your layers which mine 9 of them don't work and 1 does. And then I could add it to this. So you see there's 1 layer and there it is down at the bottom, OpenAI 37, 1 hyphen layer. And it's Python 3.7. That's the other thing. I think I used Python 3.8, which was like default on my computer. And it's like, nope, your Lambda's 3.7 pound sand. So anyway, like anything, there's a million ways to do it wrong. And I found them. So that was how you add the layer, and then it worked. I did like a test thing, the Limerick came up, I was exhausted, but I was happy. Okay, so now we have this Lambda thing that works, right? But it's in a vault, right? So now we have to add that API we talked about before. We have to open the door to our Lambda so we can actually use it. So that was the next step, which was also in that nice tutorial, thank you. And that wasn't bad. It's just like you go into Lambda and you add a trigger, and there's a whole bunch of them, right? What's going to activate this thing, this Limerick thing we just wrote? An API gateway. Awesome. So we created an API gateway. It's a REST API. And it's going to be open because I'm an idiot, right? Just like it's open. I don't know. I don't need anything harder. It's going to be just an open API. Any Tom, Dick, Harry, Susie, Mary can hit it and hit my credit card, OpenAI, that's fine. I don't even want to think about what it would take to do an API key or an IAM for this class. So I just said open, let's do that. And so great. So now we have this function over here, which is actually when you, so this function was always there. When we created the Lambda, it was there, but there was no front door to it. So now we have a front door that can hit this. So now when you hit like tinyurl.com/lambda limerick, it actually translates to this. It hits it, bing, bada, bing. In fact, I will show you that.
All right, bit of a question on that
Yes.
one. I am thinking I'm looking at two different things here. One of those was the function URL,
Yep.
which is not an API gateway URL.
Right. Yeah, I might be confused, but I think that URL was always there, but I couldn't hit it until I created the API. But I could be wrong.
Okay, I think you also have another API gateway URL, which is probably wide open, and another attack vector, if you will, that we could probably look at.
Cool.
I think that those are two different avenues
All
to
right,
get into
thank you.
Lambda.
Thank you. See, thank you very much. So anyway, when I hit that, I get this. So it must be 7 o'clock, 7:02 it is. And these limericks are not great. At 7 o'clock, 2 p.m., the sun was so bright and so gleam. Nope. It sparkled across the sky like a twinkle in the eye. That rhymes. So beautiful, it was a dream. So it almost, PM does not rhyme with gleam and dream, but okay. I can give you a hard time on that. So, so I had to create that gateway to get at it. And then it worked. And I was like, that's cool. Okay, so that was that. So now let's go play with it, which is fun. So let's go over here, and I can't see anything. Hold on. I can't see anything. So let's go modify it a little bit. Mouse. All right, I gotta get out of screen show mode here. This is driving me crazy. All right. All right, oh, that's a little too far. Anyway, okay, so where's our Lambda? Here we go. All right, so here's actually the Lambda page, right? So here's our function. I should probably zoom this a little bit. Okay, so please tell me Limerick about the time. So let's change it to say, please tell me a Dr. Seuss rhyme about the time. Let's try that. Okay, so anytime you change something in Lambda, you hit deploy. And then it updates it. And let's see what happens now. At 7:04, the clock struck late. The creatures all began to wait for the sun to set, the stars to rise, and the moon to light up the night skies. That sounds nice.
Pretty good.
So what else? What else would you like to put in there?
Keep it clean.
Dealer's choice.
Make it Shakespearean.
Oh, yes. So what do you think you say? Please tell me a Shakespeare rhyme. Would that work?
Shakespearean sonnet?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Iambic examiner. Good luck spelling that.
You lost me on Shakespeare.
I don't think I know how to spell Shakespeare, to tell you the truth. Shakespeare, is that how you spell Shakespeare?
Yep.
Is that big enough to see? Shakespeare sonnet?
Yep.
All right, let's try that. Deploy. All right, let's go back. Hit our curl. I don't know how long a sonnet is. Oh, it's short. At 7:05, the night is alive, with stars that twinkle bright in the sky. The moon is a-shining. That's the Shakespeare part. And now it's time. Oh, wait, Dr. Seuss. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Oh, did you not deploy?
There we go. Sonnet 107. You can look it up in your Bible, or your Shakespeare Bible. All right, what time is it? 7:06? Is there a 7:06 in here anywhere? Oh, because is that it? That's 7:06. I don't know. I don't see the time in there. Let's hit.
Stir it some more, right?
Let's exactly. Let's stir it some more.
Well, you said Shakespeare sonnet, maybe Shakespearean sonnet?
No, this one has it.
At 7 and 6,
Oh, there you go.
I take a break from toil. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Great Valentine's Day cards now.
That's what you should put in a Hallmark card.
Okay. All right. Okay. Good. Thank you. Let's do that.
Put a company out of business.
Hallmark card. Yeah. Sure. Let's see what happens. Do I have to count to 10 after I do deploy? I think I probably didn't wait for it to go green.
So is this officially passed the Turing test?
I don't. It's a good question. I can't remember. I know it passed the bar. I remember that. MCAS, the bar, something like that. Successfully updated. Okay, great. All right, let's go back. So Hallmark. Perfect. Spot on. But like I said, I mean, it's a BS engine, right? So like I said, here, please tell me what Chris Williams did at the time.
What could possibly go wrong?
All right. That is lame.
Socializing, close enough.
Oh, yeah, no, we got to fix that. That's not good. Please tell me what Chris Williams. Yes. Please tell me how Chris Williams broke the law.
I feel uncomfortable with this line of question.
You have witnesses, though, so. Rhode Island, how'd you get there?
Chris?
Oh, it doesn't get better than this. I'm just going to leave it at that. So,
See, 0.15, that's the lie right there.
yeah.
Way higher.
So one big difference between using the API and the actual web format, which you've experienced here, is when using the web UI, it will err on the side of caution. And it will tell you as a natural language model, I'm not able to speculate on something.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Whereas if you use the API directly,
yeah, which is what I'm doing.
you can avoid a lot of that. So I was expecting that to come up. But,
You get all sorts of stuff. Okay, so, all right, still have more slides. Okay, so what did it cost? So we saw it was like $2 for running this for 24 hours, one hit every minute. And Lambda's 0, right? Because you get a lot of hits at Lambda before it starts charging you, right? So like for 24 hours, I went into Lambda this morning. We can go into now, it's still 0, right? I don't know what it is, like 100,000 hits for free or something like that. I mean, so it was a lot of pain, but it didn't cost me anything to get the Lambda function working. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but everyone wants to know, like, what does it cost? So again, whatever that math is, every minute for 24 hours, it costs me about $2.50 to do one request. All right, that's...
Like, is API Gateway a free service too?
Nothing's free in Amazon, but let's take a look. Actually, it's not as bad. I think let's jump into...
The question is if we were using API Gateway, though.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, yeah, good point. So, where's my billing?
So the Lambda, it's 1 million free requests
Thank you.
a month in the free tier. But then AWS has a free tier that for some folks expires in a year on certain services.
Yeah.
And then some services are free tier for life. So depending on how many AWS accounts, I'm interested, Mr. Burner phone back here, how many AWS accounts we might be able to spin up. Those free tiers are going to come and go and not always make a lot of sense. But at the end of this, there will likely be a little giveaway for some AWS credits. So anyone in this room probably won't have to worry about that.
Nice.
Yeah, hopefully.
let's see.
Yeah, how do you want to do names for local and
Oh, I forget where it is. Cost, where was it? There's like a collapsed thing that kind of shows you where everything is. Cost Explorer. I forget where it is. I think I had a URL into my deck, but it kind of shows you everything, EC2, everything, and kind of expand it. And I can't.
So if you hit Cost Explorer on the left under Home,
Yep.
I think then the next screen should let you filter by service over.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, you got it right there.
Yeah. So this one was. So in March, EC2. That's my Cloud 9. Secrets Manager. I think I was trying to use that initially to put. I got to get rid of that one. I put my API key in the secrets because the tutorial had that. I'm like, oh, this is too hard. S3's probably has to do with my Cloud 9. You pay to use Cost Explorer?
For enhanced metrics, I believe you do, depending on the granularity. Yeah.
Okay. EC2, that's my Cloud 9. Tax, so yes, of course. API Gateway 0, so that's good. And whether I'm using it or not. Lambda, other, so yeah.
API Gateway does have a free tier, I think.
Okay.
Some number of
All right. So yeah. So that was what I wanted to cover. This deck you'll have. I actually put some appendix slides in there. Actually, some of my coworkers who are actual data scientists on Friday presented ChatGPT, and it was brilliant. So I threw some of my favorite slides from them in this silly appendix here, which goes into a lot of stuff, but you can get access to that.
Oh, did you talk to Leah about this?
There were 3 gentlemen who were data scientists at Worldwide who presented Friday at ATC Builders call.
Oh.
I couldn't make it as a customer call, but I got the replay in their slides, and it was awesome. So that's that. That's what I wanted to go over, a little bit of machine learning, a little bit how ChatGPT works. It's a confident BS engine, and thanks for having me. Any other questions that I can't answer?
There was a question that came in.
Yeah, oh, good.
It said, could you not just upload the layer to S3 and then get the ARN from that to put in your Lambda function?
So yes. Yes, I tried that a lot. And I was probably doing something wrong because that's what I did. That's what I did a whole bunch. That was when I was talking about all those Linux experiments. I was zipping up this layer. I was uploading it, which when you use the AWS CLI, it does give you an ARN. And you can either add the layer by layer name or by ARN. And I added it by ARN, and I kept getting just horrible errors about too many hyphens or things I didn't understand. So again, I don't do this for a living, but that's what happened.
There is a model where you can use Pip locally, and there's a Python Lambda package. So
Really?
you use virtual environments to kind of
Oh, nice.
use up and deploy, much like click and deploy in UI, but
Oh, nice.
you weren't that far off.
Oh, so actually, yeah.
You get all the pain to be initiated into that.
So actually, and is that like an IDE like online, or do you do it locally?
No, you can do command line.
Okay.
You actually use virtual env, and then you have to install the Python Lambda package, and then pip install anything you want inside that, and then.
Oh, Python Lambda package. Ah.
Self-plug, there's a V Brown bag that I might have presented on how to package Python Lambdas.
I get it. Okay.
Yeah, to
That's
check
going to
out.
save me a lot of pain for next time I try this 5 years from now.
It's all different by then.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks. Thanks, everyone. This is great. Nice meeting you all. Nice to see real human beings. And thanks for the pizza.